The pandemic has probably affected my life mostly in terms of education and my job.
Before lockdown, I was at university. I was in my last term and I had like a lot of work going on, but then it all kind of stopped.
I think it's going to be a struggle next year with trying to learn new things without being able to speak to my tutors in person.
Everything sort of moved online. Obviously no one was expecting to have to happen, so it all kind of seemed a bit thrown together. So that transition was kind of hard to continue learning and trying to make it work for myself.
The coronavirus pandemic has certainly affected young people severely. Specifically, I think, working class and black and ethnic minority young people, whose statistics shows communities are more likely to be hardest hit.
We're more likely to kind of work in hospitality, retail, and those are the sectors where jobs are being cut or lost. I had been working part-time, but my contract had come to an end in February, so before, but then I thought I'll work full-time over the summer. So I had a job lined up and it kind of fell through because of the pandemic and stuff.
I've seen friends who graduated this year and had graduate jobs lined up, and then they've been told that unfortunately they won't be able to start the job.
One of the other main concerns that I'm so worried about is actually the fallout in terms of mental health for this, because over the next 2 years, potentially you could see a massive mental health spike across the UK.
More than anything, the fact that you're at home, you don't have that social interaction, your routine has just been completely and utterly disrupted.
Because of my role as a young carer, we have been more isolated. Family and friends automatically take a step back because they understand that the person you care for are vulnerable.
I've been shielding, so we've still more or less been living in a lockdown until the end of this week. So we've had about 4 months of sort of lockdown in a way, and that's had like a massive impact in sort of adjusting, and actually with that then comes sort of other issues of sort of mental health and anxiety of actually how do you integrate back into the world.
There's probably plenty of people that probably really struggled by not having anyone to talk to.
As someone who has suffered with anxiety and depression, being isolated and having the constant 24/7 news has been deeply troubling and has led to me being at crisis point a couple of times.
I found it difficult to balance my work and my free time, so usually I spent a few days just working non-stop, which isn't good for my health really. I think what the government could be doing for young people is just to create long-term jobs really.
Their Kickstarter programme is just a drop in the ocean. Their traineeships are numbers that are tiny compared to the amount of young people that are going to need help. As a young carer, they haven't announced anything that will help me get into the world of work or into education. There are entire sectors that are on the precipice of collapse. Young people in those sectors are going to need real support, not only to move to a different sector, but to retrain, to skill up. And so far the government plans don't seem to recognise just how difficult that is.
We all need to think about each other, because I think if we want a better future, it is about working together and getting through this and make things right.
I think what worries me most about the future is how uncertain it all is when it comes to jobs. If part-time jobs kind of in retail or hospitality are going to be available. And then in the long term, nobody really knows how it's going to affect graduate jobs and if realistically you're going to be able to support yourself.
I'm at a stage where I've got to start planning for the future, and it is really difficult to think about. Like I don't know where I'm going.
Any private sector industry is going to struggle after this pandemic. Many people will experience what I went through with sanctions and universal credit, and it will create a lot of anger and resentment.
There is always going to be this year where they're going to be like, I paid like a full year, but I'm not getting the experience that I'm supposed to get.
We're heading for a crisis of youth unemployment, with millions of young people unable to find work and unable to secure long-term employment.
I'm trying to apply for internships and look for work experience and kind of get my foot in the door, but right now everything's shut.
It is very scary because this is the last thing that we expected to happen, and I guess things aren't ever going to be the same ever again, and in a way that's good because it's made us realise that we need more flexible ways of working, and how things were working before probably wasn't the best.
That's going to be a gap, and that's still not really clear from what I've heard from young people, how they're going to get the grades, if they're going to get opportunities to resit, etc. They're just going to get grades given. Some of that stuff is still a bit unclear. And actually then there's a gap in their sort of like life in a way, and in their career prospects. It will have a knock-on effect